Hello, I'm Anadi from SoundsOrange.com, and today I'm speaking from the heart with musician Kavi Jezzie Hockaday. Welcome, Kavi.
Hello, Anadi. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, great to be sitting on the comfy sofa with you.
Yay, brilliant, brilliant. I'd like to talk to you about your music, specifically Brand New Day, which I think is a fantastic album. I've really enjoyed it. So, what inspired that album?
Well, I mean, I've got loads of music on your site, and when we were trying to work out how many albums, and I'm not sure I can remember. It's 13 or 14 or something.
Count,
you know, we lost count, and so it was like in being interviewed, it's where to start to talk about music, right?
Absolutely.
You know, because it's such a I've been a musician for 35 years, so you know I know it inside out, really. But so as an entry point, we thought we'd start on Brand New Day, right? Because Brand New Day has a little bit of difference to it in that it's made up of sort of 3.5 minute punchier kind of songs, which is sort of unusual for me, but also a return to roots, my kind of roots, because I've been on a journey with music, and I started off doing the kind of punky thing and the psychedelic thing and all of those kind of things, which we'll talk about a little bit. But then I went on a transformational journey. I ended up in the spiritual realm doing lots of heart music and meditation music that also we'll kind of talk about and mention. And then I thought, you know, I really want to write something succinct and see if I can capture love and consciousness and awareness in 3.5 minute punchy songs, right?
Right.
Why not?
Why not?
You know, and because actually there's something about the form of 3.5 minute songs. I mean, not tightly 3.5 minutes, loosely, but the form of it, where you have to be very aware of not wasting any space or time. Whereas when you're doing meditation music, you know, it's like, well, you can allow that chorus to meander on. It's more like an ambling river, you know, whereas this music, you know, the 3.5 minute music, particularly when you reintroduce electric guitars and lots of kind of punchy tambourines and stuff like that, it's more like surfing the rapids, you know, but it's still the river, right? It's still the river of consciousness. To me, it's still the river of consciousness. And that's what really excited me. I'd had it in mind somewhere. I'd been developing songs for a while, and we went over to America, and I found myself kind of jangling and writing a few. I never thought they'd make it into the sort of domain, actually onto a record or anything like that. And they were all influenced by my early influences. So they had a bit of Jim Morrison and the Doors. You know, they had the Rolling Stones. They obviously had Pink Floyd, which is embedded in my kind of music. But it was much more of it'd be some Van Morrison, you know, things like that. And they started to kind of emerge in it. And I did it all myself, you know, and I did it because I can record at home and you know, it's like a rough demo, or a very good demo, I mean. Not a rough one, but a very good demo. But and I was just, you know, I don't know, for some reason I still am delighted with that album, because it proved to me personally that I could record punchy songs with awareness and love that are promoting a positive ethic or positive vibration without actually being new agey. There's nothing new agey. There's one new age song on the album, which is like the penultimate song, which is all about the new world and waking up and, you know, and all this sort of stuff. But otherwise, they've got the intention, you know, and they've got the, you know, the kind of vibration of love. So they're very clean, but they're still, to me, rock and roll. A couple of them sound like Oasis, you know, that sort of thing. So that's where that album came from, and I was really pleased. I haven't been able to write an album since. I don't know what to do. Just go back to the you know, the stillness, and I will, you know, because my heart is in transformational music and love and that kind of vibration. But you know, I'm a bit of a rock and roller.
You can hear that actually if you listen to your albums. There is this sort of transformational thread that you can trace throughout, you know.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's. I mean, if I was to be really honest with you, yeah, in this interview, and I do make a mark of trying to be honest, to offer some integrity, it's been frustrating. It's been a frustrating journey being a musician, yeah, for me, because I always knew that I was good, that I was pretty good, and that hasn't been transferred into sales or a recognition, you know, and so it hasn't taken the course that I thought maybe it would have done in a way, and I don't hold anybody responsible for that but myself.
Right.
You know, and not out of in a bad way, but in a kind of good way. It was, I don't know what I was doing it for, but I used it as an escape route. Yeah, it was a way of rebelling against the world. It was a way of rebelling against my parents, and so I joined the youth culture. You know, and there I was, kind of stomping around, being a punk and all that kind of stuff, making kind of statements through music. But it had a certain vibration that actually, it didn't really work. It was quite angry, or not angry in the kind of punk way, but it was negative. There was a bit of negativity.
Right.
Yeah, it was troubled. That's what the word was, right? It was troubled, and that's all okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because there's a lot of music out there that's really good, that's also really troubled, that speaks of the troubled heart or speaks of the troubled mind. But it just, you know, because I was actually troubled in myself as well, I found it quite difficult to get on stage. So I was quite inhibited by my own fears, and that proved a problem to me. And then when in my journey through life, when I let go of all of that, through my own kind of transformational journey, and I let go of wanting to be a pop star, I let go of wanting to sell 10 million albums, I let go of wanting to be U2, I let go of wanting to be Pink Floyd, all that kind of stuff just dropped away. And then actually I was just able to become myself.
What I find interesting about that is the word transformation has come up quite a few times.
Yeah.
And although you might not have had the recognition yet, or the sales yet, through the music that you've done, it does seem to me that it's been a big part of your transformation, and maybe that's what you were meant to get out of it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, music is embedded in my being. Yeah, I'm most at home when I'm doing music, right, just for myself. So if ever I get too kind of troubled, or you know, or uptight, or I will just pick up a guitar and play it, and within you know, half an hour or an hour, I've really gone into a different space. So it's become a form of meditation, whereas I thought it was an expression of trouble, you know, or an expression of myself. Actually, it's not. It's something that actually gives me a lot. You know, it takes me to a place. And it has been absolutely part and parcel of my transformation, because I was a certain, I was trapped. Before I developed, you know, went through a transformation, I was quite trapped in not really knowing much about the world, or being limited in this kind of perspective, you know, or musical genres. You know, it was very tight. You know, so I ended up playing with a breakbeat band, like I told you before, a breakbeat band who were very angry, and the lead singer was an alcoholic. And I'd given up drinking, but I was still playing in this band, thinking that was the only outlet for me to do. And that was after I'd done my own band, which I just couldn't run. It was too tempestuous. You know, playing with musicians is a difficult business, right? You know, it's not easy. You've got egos running around. That's why I like doing what I'm doing now, not because I get to play just with myself and deal with my own ego, but actually musicians, they tend to be a little bit more conscious that I want to play with. So we don't have the same clashes of you do what I say, or I'm right and you're wrong, or I hate you, or all these kind of things, or I hate myself. Yeah. You know, all these kind of things that play themselves out in bands. You know, so many bands implode and people get very, very wounded from it, you know?
Of course, and what people don't realise is, you know, band members are people that you end up spending so much of your life with. And with all the intensity of performing in studios,
yeah, you've got to get on. Yeah,
melting pot,
you really have to get on, or be able to live with each other's differences. You know, those kind of things. And if you haven't got that, then it's really difficult. And I didn't ultimately have the ability, because it's a trade-off, isn't it? If the music's that good and you're having that much fun, or you know the experience is great, or you're growing in some sort of way, then you will put up with crap. you know, from other people, and you'll work it out somehow. But if it's not that good, if you know, if the bait isn't that good, you won't kind of do it. And the bait in the last album, the last band, the breakbeat band, the bait wasn't good. It was too troubled, and that brought me to a crunch point musically. I would say, looking back on it now, it brought me to a crunch point because I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm done. You know, I'm never going to play in a band again. I said categorically, I ain't doing this again, man. I'm out. And I loved music, so it was difficult to kind of leave the band because I knew it was going to fall apart as well if I left it. And not that I was integral to it, but I was a symptom. You know, I was like, once one is leaving the sinking ship, it was sinking. You know, and so then the producer of that band was going out with this woman called Amoda Marjivan, who's now my wife. Yeah. And she was running some transformational trance dance. That's what she used to do, ecstatic trance dance. And she was using live music, which was very unusual in those days. This is the year 2000, 2001. And she used live music. And he said, why don't you use this guy, Kavi, to play some guitar for you? And she was like, well, I don't want guitar. You know, I'm using drummers. It was trance, you know. And so he said, give him a try. He's crazy. He's like you. He's a crazy Aquarian as well. So she chanced her arm and got me down there, and I went down with my acoustic guitar and my pedals and all my psychedelic kind of paraphernalia, and I let rip with these two drummers, and we didn't know what we were playing because it was all improvised, because the nature of that experience is it's in a state of let go. Let go is the most extraordinary thing. And because you have to surf the edge, you're providing a service for people, so they need an authentic experience. But you can't fake it by playing rock and roll. You can't really work out what you're going to do in advance because it needs to be in the moment, yeah? That's right. And that's where I became really skilled. I became a master. Yeah. I was good. I mean, I was really good. And in all honesty, it was just like that experience was, over a 2-year period, I would say, was one of the high points of my life musically. Not because people were buying my records or any of those reasons, but purely because I was doing something that had a better purpose than any purpose that I'd ever associated music with before, ever, period. It was fantastic, man. And you know what? I never recorded one note of it. Really? Yeah. I made it my decision, A, because it was quite hard to record it, yeah, so it's technically, as you know, technically it's difficult to record some of those things, and also because I'd become aware of something, and that was that if in the moment you make yourself available for, let's call it spirit, to kind of pour through you as a musician, and you don't try and capture it on film or on record or anything like that, actually, the next moment is likely to be as good or even better. Yeah, absolutely. That's the truth, and that's it. It's the whole story of the kind of pygmies in the forest not wanting themselves to be captured on film. Yeah, because they feel it will steal something away from them. Right. Yeah, I had the same kind of principle, which if we don't record it, I'm not going to use that part of my brain to analyse it. If I analyse it, I know that I'll find holes in it, because the mind finds holes in everything. It'll scrutinise it and it'll say, that's no good, that's no good, that's no good. Well, in the moment that I'm playing, I know that. I know it's no good. Right. But the next moment is moving. You're in the next moment before you can do anything about the last moment. It became a totally spiritual experience for me. Fantastic, yeah. It became the root, one of the seeds of actually a deep transformation, because I became the lead musician, really. It revolved around me, right, because I was playing the melody, if you like, psychedelic melody, really up in the ethereal, you know, and then I could drop down into some chugging sort of stuff. And I'd just play absolutely as my heart was dictating, as the energy was. And I'm an energy feeler. I can feel energy. I'm very, very aware of energy. And so it kind of instructed me how I would get caught in pockets of music, and I'd panic about how to get out of them. What am I doing? So I'd lose myself. Yeah, I'd get lost in thought and not be in the moment, because I could tell by reading people how they were responding, whether it was flowing, whether it was stuck, how uncomfortable I was actually feeling, and was I bringing my own uncomfortable feelings into the music and then being transferred onto them. So I became acutely aware of the transfer of energies.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
far out, isn't
That
it?
is
It's
very far
really
out.
far out, the transfer of energies. Who's starting what? And who's doing what to who? I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell at the end of the day. But I know that it was an exciting relationship between me, music, and the people who were moving around in it. It was a very dynamic, exciting relationship. And the more we all got out of the way, the more something much more creative was happening. So there'd be waves, because human beings follow waves, because we are waves. So the whole dance over a 50-minute hour period would follow this wave that would go up, and then it would go down, and it would go up and it would go down. And it wasn't always nice. And I was one of the masters of, when we sat in, you know, we'd often sit with 40, 50 people, because we got a lot of people along to these classes. And I'd be sitting there, and when I realised kind of what was going on, when people in a small talking circle would say, "I really hated that," I would be like, "Excellent."
Really?
Yeah, we weren't trying to provide a nice experience. That's one of the mistakes I think that people make. When you're talking about transformation, it doesn't have to be nice. Right? In fact,
it isn't.
It's preferable sometimes if it's not nice.
Right.
Nice does not create growth.
Right.
Yeah?
That's right.
Difficulty and trouble actually creates growth.
Yeah.
That's what we knew, and that's what Amoda was pretty cool at. And so we were very prepared to take the river into the rapids. So that involved stomping and shouting and rah from people, cathartic, And it was like, through that process, they got something very real, very authentic, yeah? Because that was the whole point, was authenticity.
Absolutely.
And that's like, wow, that's a teaching, yeah? That's a teaching for me that I learned through that 2-year period. I became so good, I would say, at playing the guitar. I've never been quite that good since at playing the guitar. Because when you play an instrument, or you do something every day, all the time, there's a kind of fluidity, there's a dexterity, there's a relationship that builds up where the mind can get out of the way. And it took me a long time to realise that. The practice does take you to a different level.
Oh, totally.
When you're doing something all the time, you just move through these different levels. And if ever, it's like you want to be something when you start out very, very quickly, whatever that is, whether it's riding a bike or, working computers or any skill or practice that one has in life. You just have to keep on going through all difficulties.
That's
and
right.
You can end up somewhere. And I've really paid testament to that. So I got very, very good. And that was the spark of my transformation. And then I rose in love with Amoda, into this wondrous relationship that's defined this part of my life. And then I found myself in her flat. I'd got some money, through my mother. She actually passed away, and she left me some money. And that money I used to set myself up with a music system. And I thought that, it was great. It was a real blessing to receive that. And I was full of gratitude. And I used it to buy a really good music system that I'd never had before in my life. And then in Amoda's flat where I was living with her, I produced an album, and that album was Unconditional Love, that ended up on New Earth Records.
Right.
Through a whole series of events. New Earth Records are an American company, global spiritual company based in Osho, really, run by a couple of old sannyasins. And I managed to get an album released by them, which is the first album release I've ever had.
Wow.
And it was Unconditional Love, and that album was bathed in English mysticism.
Right.
It's very, very beautiful, and it's very, very dear to my heart. And that's that whole period, of deepening into music, of knowing that music is a vast tool for meditation, transformation, and love. And I became Unconditional Love, we called it. 3 years prior to that, man, I would not have been able to even say the word love.
Right. Yeah, and that's quite a thing, isn't it? To move from, like you were saying, the punk
Yeah.
into you know, singing about unconditional love.
Into a deep heart space.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I was as shocked as anybody else, I think, you know. And I mean, the change in me had been total by that time. So I'd shed all my friends we fell away from each other. So it's, you know, and I shed all the things that were no longer serving me, really. And it just I naturally gravitated into a new era in my life, a sort of maturity, if you like, or a deep change. And it was difficult. Transformation is difficult. It can be really difficult.
Of course.
But the rewards are you get juicy. You know, you get real, you get wise, you get clear. You know, these are all the things that have happened to me. And it just informed my creativity. It really did inform my creativity. So then, after Unconditional Love, kind of album after album after album, and they didn't get all released on New Earth, you know, but then I found you.
Yay.
Through another connection, a really good connection of Sachaloka. And so I started putting, you know, we just hit it off, right? We had a really good vibration, because for me it's not, I don't want my music to be anonymous. My music is very personal. Right. It's actually quite, not informal, what's it?
Intimate.
Yes, it's quite intimate.
Absolutely.
Yes,
definitely.
There's an intimate relationship that I have.
Yeah.
And I think that comes across. So it's almost like you have to give my music a chance. You have to be introduced to it, or you have to be in a space where you're able to kind of receive it, almost.
Yeah, it's like developing a relationship.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I actually think that is the case with all music.
Yes, it is.
But your music in particular.
Yeah. It is quite kind of sensitive in a way. It's a vibration. There's a vibration going on in there.
Totally.
You know, and so I can't go out and hard sell it. I don't. You know, in terms of gigs, I don't really. I tried playing quite a lot. As a solo musician, and it's been okay. You know, I've played in Glastonbury quite a lot, and I've done my fair share of gigs, but I can't really find the places to play, to be honest. You know, it doesn't. I can't go out and play in pubs and stuff like that. It ain't gonna
it's
work.
The wrong music for
it ain't
that,
gonna work. No way. Mind you, having said that, right, which brings us back to the Brand New Day album.
Right.
I could.
With Brand New Day, you could.
Yeah.
You
see, I do have a cunning plan.
No, you do.
Yeah. Well, I do have a cunning plan, but it's just going to take a bit more oomph and guts, really, to actually put it into action. Right. And that is to take some of those songs, and to actually go out and start playing out to people who maybe aren't in the spiritual domain, who maybe aren't sort of transformed yet, or, you know, or I don't know, you know, just go out and play them in different places that I might not ordinarily play in, and see what happens. The trouble with that is I've got to try and put a little band together, because I don't really want to just do it on my own.
Right.
I would really like to get a little band together.
Right.
I would love to, because there's still so much music in me, and I feel like one of those old blues musicians of the Americas, you know, who actually just get better as they get older. They might not get faster, but the quality and feel of what they're playing just gets better and better and better, because they're dropping into a deeper and deeper space. Because speed, you know, of how fast you can play, that's the young guys thing, and they can do that. And young guys these days, they're terrifyingly fast and terrifyingly good.
Yeah.
So the only option and possibility for me is to outbeat them in, like, wisdom coming through music
and quality.
And quality.
Absolutely.
I'm an old timer, kind of thing. Even though I don't look like an old timer, I am an old timer.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm kind of hoping in a way that life conspires in my favour, and I've got this intention, and I can actually start going out and playing some of these gigs. You know,
that would be fantastic. And also, I think with Brand New Day, as you said earlier, you made the songs quite punchy. And in a way, what you've done is followed the format that people are expecting to hear from songs. You know, with a lot of you know, dare I say, new age music. You know, there is no format. You know, there's no verse, chorus, middle eight, etc. Yeah. You know, with Brand New Day, that format is there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which means that it can hook in.
Absolutely.
You know, because people are so. I mean, everything is conditioning.
Absolutely.
You know, we're all very conditioned, and once I realised that about pop culture as well, it did kind of put me off it somewhat. You know, I realised that they're just following something that actually is an abstract idea: verse, chorus. You know, what is that? Where has that come from? And then 3.5 minute song came from it was purely out of practical. wasn't it? That they only had that much space
That's
to
right.
actually
They
burn it
record
onto
it.
the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing. And so we took that as being some sort of sacrosanct thing that's written in the heavens.
That's right.
I don't think so, guys.
Absolutely.
You know, I haven't heard that
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
You know, and so you know, it's like it's not real. So we're conditioned to listen in that way. And when you play out to people as well in pubs and clubs, it's like they're standing there, and a lot of the time they're standing there with arms folded, especially in England.
That's right.
They're not very. There's not a lot of enthusiasm going on. Well, you know, what are you going to do to entertain me?
That's
Come
right.
on, entertain me. And
right.
that's where I have fallen flat in my any hint of having to entertain anybody.
Right.
You know, even though I'm a clown and I really like entertaining people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If they demand it, if it's part of a system,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's dry, man.
Yeah, that's very
you know,
dry.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
No.
So, you know, that kind of leads me to a little bit of a block. You know, you get a bit of a block there.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are all sorts of different ways of doing things, right? And we live in magical times. We live in crazy times where, you know, can a 53-year-old guy playing, you know, kind of hippie new age songs hidden in the 3.5-minute format take a band out and actually, you know, create trouble in a good way in the world?
So.
It can happen, you know?
I think so. I think so. I look forward to it. You are playing out around meditation groups and things, aren't you? At the moment?
Yeah, well, you know, Moda, she's her own teacher, and she's got books out and she runs retreats. Yeah, so I mean that started because we were working together anyway. In the old days, coming out of the trance dance thing, we started to run transformational retreats. Right. So we run a year course and weekends and stuff like that. And then as part of that, I would always play some music. And it was really, it was great. But it was probably in those days a little bit too high energy and a little bit too, you know, it was quite zany what I used to play. I was a very zany guy. And but over the years, as she's matured and I've matured, you know, it's kind of got a bit more mellow, maybe is the best way, right. Or still. Right. Yeah, so the music that I play for her, for those retreats, is very, very focused on you know, siphoning it down to what's absolutely essential.
Right.
You know, why play, and this is one of, what is it, Coltrane's, or what's the, I can't remember. It's like, why play 10 notes when you can just play one?
Fantastic.
Bung.
Yeah.
You know, and it just kind of works. Because if, you know, so I was playing music for meditation, deep meditation. Yeah. And we did have a fantastic experience when we went over to India. We took a group over to India, to Tiruvannamalai down south, yeah, to Ramana's place and the whole of the Arunachala, and we ran a retreat there, the culmination of a year group that we did. And somebody brought, I didn't take my guitar, somebody brought a guitar along, and we were sitting in the wilderness, you know, in this just magnificence of India. Right. You know, because India is a backdrop, you know, in the villages as well, you can just hear, it's so alive, you know, but in a really soft Indian kind of way.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's almost like it's a big reverb unit. That's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're sitting in this room, you know, and everybody's in such a deep state of meditation, and yet don't have to play anything, because you know, Shiva is vibrating the strings anyway.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like an insult to Shiva to actually play anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shiva doesn't need anything.
That's
doesn't
right.
need music.
That's right.
It doesn't need me to interfere in this process with my mind. And I really got that. I really got that. It's like, wow, let's get down to the core here. You know, what's really kind of going on. And I do that. I like that my music can support that, because nothingness, you know, or silence. And so I did an album, actually, Silence of Being. Meditate, guitar, just guitar. That's on Sounds Orange.
Yeah.
And actually, I've had such good feedback about that album. It's the total opposite of Brand New Day.
Right, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
There's only a guitar, and I didn't plan it, and I didn't map it. What I did was went away for a week to a friend's house in Worcester with my recording gear, and he wasn't there, nobody was there, it's in the middle of nowhere, and I decided I was going to produce an album of meditations. So I meditated all day and got up and kept on meditating and just meditating and meditating, turned all the phones off for a whole week, and just kept on going into a space, into a space, into a space, until I got to a point where I woke up, and I like to do it really early in the morning when it's absolutely quiet.
Right.
Yeah, and then I turn on the recording stuff at about 4 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
and just see what happens.
Fantastic.
With just the guitar.
Yeah.
And it's quite tough, you know, because mistakes can happen, all these sorts of things. And it just worked, man. It ran. And out of about 8 tunes, I got 4, I think it's 4 tunes are on there.
Right.
You know, they're not tunes. They're not tunes.
Meditations.
It's a musical term, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just call anything a tune. They're meditations, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't start anywhere, and they don't go anywhere,
Yeah.
and they don't finish anywhere. They're just an act. They're a sort of moment, and I am best pleased with that, you know.
Yeah.
And I've had great reports of people using it when they do massage, when they give massage. A therapist phoned me up the other day and said that she uses the silence being, and people do use my music for that purpose. It's great for that, you know, because it doesn't interfere with anybody. It's very supportive of whatever creative process is going on, whether that's massage or meditation or writing or anything like that. It does not interfere. I don't want to interfere with anybody's stuff.
That's right.
Yeah? I'm not trying to imprint something on it. Maybe with Brand New Day it's a bit more like that. But with the other stuff, it's just like, you know, whoever you are and whatever you're doing, there's a vibration that you can use to actually bring a bit more love or focus to that without even thinking about it.
Absolutely.
So I don't like the radio. You know, things like the radio, I won't have a radio in my house because it's like, it's insistent. And it's coming into you. Yeah, it's penetrating you.
That's right.
This is not, my music in that respect is not masculine in the sense that it's penetrating. It's much more a kind of magnetic, feminine frequency that actually, if you listen closely enough, you'll find that it's actually drawing you towards it.
Right.
My music draws you, but very, very sensitively towards it. And that's the difference. There's masculine and feminine coming through music. Very, very different qualities. Most of the music out there in the pop world today is all masculine. Even if it's done by women, it's done masculine. Yeah, because it's beating on you and it's using literally a penetrative quality.
Yep. Definitely.
And that's what we feel because we live in a masculine world. And that's a very, very different quality. So the other characters and a lot of the people that you have on Sounds Orange and like from Miten and Pramal right through the range, that's all very feminine, yeah. It's all music of the divine feminine, really. You know, it's music of the heart, which is all soft and it's all got that magnetic quality to it that's drawing you towards it, into the bosom, into the heart, you know. And it's very, very good for that. And that's what the silence of being. So people have used that for massage and said that it just transports you to a place of nothingness. In that nothingness, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, what is that nothingness? You know, is that's like, to me, I've always thought that's where healing can take place. You get into that space, there aren't any words, there's nothing to say, there's no insistent lyrics coming at you. Absolutely. You know, about how troubled I am, or you know, or whatever it is. No point to make. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's just let's just let it be. Yeah. You know, let's just hang out here. You know, and that's that side of, you know, music, and that's what I do at Amoda's retreats. Right. Okay. It's just play that, and then, you know, I can throw different things in because I'm quite an adept. I've got so much material.
Right, of course you have. Absolutely.
So I could do I did a Rumi album. Right. You know, where I took Rumi's. I mean, it was such a delight to do that album as well. Yeah. And I took Rumi's poems and I thought, I'm going to sing them in my way. Right. Yeah, I'm not going to speak them, but I'm going to sing them. And I've got a very English voice, yeah. So it's not that sort of Persian mystic. You know, it's like, this is just an English guy singing Rumi. How is it going to work? But I played it with reals, and Moda had gone away to America, and I often get my albums when she goes away. So I'm just left to my own devices, and something happens to me, and I open the door to some dimension, and I just fall right in, and then I sort of scramble around doing whatever it is that I'm doing, and then by the time she comes home, I'm out
You've
again.
got an album.
Yeah, I've got an album. So when she came home and I picked her up, it was like, listen to this, baby. You know, and I put it on actually as she was going. She doesn't usually take much notice like that because, you know, it's not how she likes to be introduced. But she was like, wow, they're really soft, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, and I'd managed to get a kind of quintessential meeting place of Rumi's ecstatic poetry, beautiful poetry. And I'd shaved it a little bit in order to make it sound more melodic. Not changed the lines, but dropped a few lines in some of the poems. And got that together with some of my soft harmonies, my Pink Floyd-likeness, yeah?
Absolutely.
And just blended these two things together, this kind of Persian poetry and English mysticism, you know. And actually, they ended up sounding like I'd written them. They sound like my songs. They just sound like my songs. And I mean, if you didn't know, they'd be like, oh, here's another Kavi album. But actually, it's just Rumi tunes.
Wow.
It's just Rumi poems. And so I can do that. I do that sometimes at the retreats. So whatever is the flavour, you know, I can rise to it, really. If the feeling needs to go further in, and that's what a moda calls for, then I'll do that. And if at the end there needs to be a celebration, then we'll celebrate and I'll play some up tunes. You know, I can, you know what I mean? A kind of versatility. And that's the great thing about music, you know, that I feel for myself. I feel like a musician. I feel like a musician who isn't trying to, you know, impose it on anybody. I'm not really that interested in performing, but there's a little boy inside me that is.
You're right.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
And I hold him with great dearness because I remember what I was like when I was young. And I was a cheeky little monkey, you know, like you, a cheeky little monkey. And I always wanted some attention. I always wanted some limelight. And when my granny or my mum said, oh, look at him, isn't he fantastic? It would be like, yeah,
switching
you know,
the
yeah. And so I do want that. There's nothing dishonourable about that. That's a perfectly normal human attribute, yeah?
Absolutely.
It's like when it takes you over and when you're driven by it, it can lead to real problems.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why you see so many pop stars who've had problems, you know, and they've had problems in all sorts of different ways. It's because the child that wants the limelight is running the entire show, not the adult who's running the entire show. And so I feel like the balances through humility and through not getting what I wanted and what I thought I wanted in a way, I've actually had to come into a proper relationship with myself, which is, you know, I'm a being.
Of course.
And there's a part of me that wants some limelight. And there's another part of me that just wants to provide a service, you know, and give things for people. So the music, man, you know, has come into great purpose now. It's got real good purpose.
Yeah.
It's got really good purpose because it serves love. You're only serving two things in this life. You're serving fear or you're serving love. And music ultimately is the same thing. So what I hear with my ears now, a lot of the time, if I dare to see a TV, which I can't, I'm too frightened of television, or I hear a radio, which is the same sort of thing, I can either hear that's fear. That's a song based in fear. It might not be directly about fear, but it's got a vibration of jangly, you know, stuff that's talking about all of these things about love, this superficial. All of that superficiality is based in fear.
Has its roots.
It has its roots in fear because it has its roots in separation, because it has its roots in duality and things that you can get or lose, and all that kind of stuff. That, you know, that's a different sort of discussion, but it has that. Or else you have these songs that are actually, you know, and so much of the New Age music is actually really based in love. It is really based in love. Miten and Premal, you know, Baba, you know, I'm in awe of Miten and Premal. And Miten particularly, in a way, David Premal, she's just gifted, divine being. That's her. But him, he comes from the same place as I did. You know, he comes from a rock and roll place, where he just comes up through this thing and thought his life was going to go in a certain way, discovered Osho, blasted him apart, and then he had to kind of find himself still doing something that he loved. And he has managed to navigate it. His lyrics, on his solo albums, his lyrics really informed me. I took a lot of having the guts to, lay your heart on the line, man. You know, simply through listening to Maten. Because when I first listened to Maten, I cringed badly. Amoda took me to Alternatives to watch Maten and Pramao, and this was like in 2001 or 2002, and it was like these two singing, and he was singing one of his songs from, I can't remember which album, and I was like, jeez. I was like that, yeah? Yeah. So I understand how people feel about this music, you know? They see it as cheese. Why? Because there's a threat. Because it's an unknown experience to them. Absolutely. I was already on a transformational path, but I still wanted my music to be delivered to me in a certain way. Right. And I didn't want it coming from some, this cheesy kind of lyrics. And then I listened, and then I listened, and then we played the albums, and then it was just part of the vibration of what I was going into. A year later, I was his #1 fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing.
I was his #1 fan.
Yeah.
I love some of his songs about Osho. It's bring me to my knees with tenderness.
You
make me cry.
Feel the devotion.
He's just brilliant. Yeah. You can feel devotion.
Yeah.
And whatever he applies it to, he's prepared to boldly wear his heart. And not just the impersonal heart of love, but actually his own personal heart. I feel as well. And that's a mark of a warrior.
That is the mark of a warrior.
It's a mark of a warrior.
Yeah.
And so, these things, I don't know, it's amazing, huh?
And inspiring.
Totally inspiring.
Yes.
Totally inspiring, because he really did, and he's one of them. Mm. So they serve love. Yep. And you can tell what's happening in the world, because wherever they go, they're serving love, yeah?
Oh, man,
it's not a fearful thing.
No, it really isn't.
And so my music, I realised that, not consciously, not out of a decision, but as it came through me, I realised that my music was serving love as well.
Of course, and that's a great gift.
And that's a great gift. If there's any gift in my music, it is that it's serving love, because there are too many things serving fear.
Absolutely.
It's an illusion, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
And the whole of the industries mostly seem to be serving fear. What comes out of the TV is fear, and what comes out of the radio is fear. Yeah. And that music, even though it's tantalising, it's like McDonald's stuff. It feels good for a minute.
Yeah, that's it.
And then it's gone.
Good.
Hasn't got any lasting quality, and it leads to toxicity.
That's right.
And it will make you ill in the long run. Isn't it?
Absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So your music obviously is very available on soundsorange.com.
Yes.
Any other resources?
Well, I would like to just mention my albums on New Earth Records. Yeah, because they were wonderful to me, and I did write another album called Breath of Fire after I'd done my Unconditional Love album, which is all English mystic, and it's very, very amazing album. Then I thought, what am I going to do next? And I didn't have a clue, because the difficult second album.
Yeah,
I did a difficult second album. Yes. I couldn't do it. I can't do a difficult second album. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So then I ended up just playing around with a load of rhythms and produced a more tribal album called Breath of Fire, which they released for Trance Dance Workout, American style. Right. So it's very upbeat. It's just drums, no nothing. Some guitar. I can't always slip the guitar in psychedelic Pink Floyd-like guitar playing in there. And so New Earth Records are a very, very good company. And so I've got a couple of albums on New Earth Records, and that's newearthrecords.com.
Right.
And I'm all over Facebook like a rash.
Rave.
So you can find, you can find it on, I think it's Kavi Jezzie Hockaday. I mean, if you put Kavi Jezzie Hockaday into a search engine on Google, you will come up with stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come up with yours, because you've done it, SEO'd it so well that Sounds Orange. But in all honesty, it's like, for me, it's about relationship. Absolutely. The reason I love you, man, is because we've got a relationship going on that is about you, me, people, and the world. Transforming.
Absolutely.
And if that means, I transform the world one download at a time.
That was great. I was going to ask you if you could put your your message to the world into a sentence or paragraph, what would it be? And that's probably
I think that's it. You know,
transforming the world one time at a time,
I think that about sums it up, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about love. It's not about fear, and it is about connection. You know, and I, you know, it's like I don't make much money at music, so I've had to look elsewhere, and obviously, but that's been okay, you know, because I let go of a dream. Let go of dreams is fine, you know. It brings you to reality,
of course.
You know. And so now what happens is, on the times that people do buy my music, I actually feel really valued. And then when somebody gives me some feedback, it's like, oh man, I love it. It's like nectar. It's like a little jewel of nectar that feeds me. It's like a spoon of honey. Yeah. You know, because I know the person who's got in touch with me really values it. Absolutely. It's not glibly, you know, just another album. It's like, you know, there was a guy the other day who actually bought my Divine Inside album. He didn't actually buy it, he bought it hard copy from me. Right. Yeah, because he said, I've been listening to your music, and he really loves me anyway, but I've been listening to the Divine Inside online, you know, for weeks and weeks, and I have to have a copy, and will you sign it as well? Oh, bless. Yeah. That's great. And it was like, you know, for what? Why? You know, I'm not going to be, I mean, without belittling myself, I'm not going to be like Bono or one of those big guys, you know. So it's just like, it's just a connection. It's all about connection. And that's great appreciation. Yeah, it is, you know, and to feel that must be an amazing rush. Yeah, it is. You know. Well, it's just affirms that there's something right going on more than anything. Absolutely. You know, that it's good, that it just feels good. You know, it's just, I like the little bits of nectar, because life has its troubles, you know, and life has its, you know, we're living crazy times. Absolutely. So when, you know, I mean, I really like honey. I like bee pollen, honey, and, you know, it's around because it's sweet, you know. Absolutely. So if somebody feeds you a compliment, man, you take it. Yeah, take it, man. I ain't got no problem with compliments, you know. I just, you know, they're beautiful things. They are. You know, but also, you know, before we pull this to a halt, it's like I really, you know, it's the connection between you and I is really, really good, because I'm very appreciative of the fact that you've put my music, you know, that we developed that relationship. We've never had a bad word. No. We've never had any argument about anything. Yeah. It just goes along like a really cool river. Absolutely. You know, we both want the same things, you know, which is, you know, personal success in some way, but not success at the expense of, success that includes, you know, us and everybody else, so that we can all kind of rise up together in a really good wave, you know. That I think that Sounds Orange is really good because it puts out such a good vibration of love. Again, it's all love. Just talk about love all the time. It puts out a great vibration of love and integrity. Yes. Yeah, and it's well designed. And it's seamless, and it runs really well, because I've been on a lot of sites and stuff, you know, and MP3 sites, and there are glitches everywhere, man. And I'm a bit of a Steve Jobs kind of guy, in the sense that I love things to be smooth, in a sense, you know. And with software, I think you need that. That needs to be the case, so. You know, because as for users, you need that experience to be a really good experience. And I see that what you're doing, so I have a lot of respect for you, man, in how you run Sounds Orange, and the vibration that you bring, and the artists that you get on. Yeah. You know, because everybody has a similar kind of vibe. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Well, so thanks. I really appreciate that. It's really good. That's why I'm delighted to be on it. You know, it's great, and I just feel that you keep. You know, one keeps the same with me. You just keep on doing what you're doing. And some point you kind of drop a bit of the end result. Absolutely. We were talking about destinations and journey a bit earlier. That's right. You know, it's like, well, what's the destination that I imagine? It's not that. It's never that. That's you never arrive at the same destination that you thought you wanted to arrive at. That's right. Ever. That's right. So drop the destination idea and put everything into now. You know, I'm investing in now, you know. And enjoying the journey. And enjoying the journey, yeah. So when it comes to making the music, I make the music. I make music not really because I've got a plan, but because suddenly something happens to me. Right. And it's an inevitable consequence. You'll write an album. It's an inevitable consequence of the energy that's going on in my life at that particular moment, that has built up over a period of time, that just has brought me to, here we go, I'm going to make an album called Brand New. I didn't know it was going to be Brand New Day, but I know, not because I've kind of sat down and thought, you know, I better make an album. It just comes, right? Yeah. It's an amazing thing. Creativity is an amazing thing, you know? Absolutely. So there we are.
Yeah. Kavi, thank you very much. It's really been great. It's been good fun.
Yeah. It's
amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.